What's going on, guys? This is Strong Life Podcast, also going to Instagram. Normally I wait for people to roll in, but I pull the audio from this and we post it up on Strong Life Podcast, Apple, and Spotify. So we had 5 questions come in through Q&A, and I'm sure more questions be tomorrow. And then I got 2 questions through email that I'm going to address first. I love the Q&A episodes. It allows me to really help people with exactly what they're inquiring about rather than guessing. If you're new here, go to zachstrength.com, get your free training courses, and if you're on Instagram, links to all my courses are in the bio. So this question's coming in from Dustin Brown. If you go on my website and you respond to the emails from the newsletter, I'll post them up here. Austin, what's up, buddy? Wall Athletics. Okay, Dustin, I keep the last name anonymous. I've been lifting again for 5 months after a year off because of pure laziness. I find myself for the first time in my life getting pain in my elbows. I'm 37 and lift reasonably heavy. Nothing competition level, but average lifts for my age and build. What can I do to help this pain? And Andre's asking, what about shirts in Europe? Man, if you could help me make that happen, I would do it. The t-shirt company I use, the shipping for overseas is more than the cost of the shirt, so they just said it's not worth it, especially if a shirt gets lost in the mail. All right, elbow pain. There's not a whole lot of information here. What exercises are causing the elbow pain? Is it pressing exercises, rowing exercises? Is it during pull-ups? Is it from different grips? What does your warm-up look like? Do you have any past history of elbow injuries? And also food. You know, foods that cause inflammation make the joints feel like shit, especially in this like mid-30s range. If you have a 15 or so years history of heavy lifting, your body starts feeling the effects of it. So, elbow pain, I'm going to say you got to do a better warm-up. Get a mini band, do a ton of one-arm tricep extensions and push-downs from different angles. After every set, I want you to do a dead hang for 30 seconds. It decompresses the back. It opens up and creates some space in the shoulder, but also in the elbows. I've seen Donnie Thompson post something on his Instagram or YouTube where he had a band attached to something and he was extending the band. It was around his arm and elbow. It was like terminal knee extensions for the elbow. He either created that himself or saw Dick Hartzell doing it. The other thing is, are you switching up the variation of the exercise? I talk about this a lot. There's videos on my YouTube. You could just type in specialty bars. We even have the specialty bar, the farm bar, and specialty bars I've had made from other companies. I've always had thick grip made. So, are you always benching with a straight bar? If yes, do you change the grip? Do you change the loading pattern? Are you using bands and chains? What about changing up the tempo? A lot of times when we're training too aggressively, you got to do slow eccentrics. That tends to help tendons and ligaments. But I'd like to see a more thorough warm-up, and even in between sets. I'm at the age, I am not chasing numbers. It is not odd for me to do something like a Rhinoflex band bell bench, then do pull-ups, then do tricep push-downs, then do pullovers. I'll do exercises that might, quote-unquote, fatigue my bench press, but I'm not worried about the bench press. It doesn't negatively impact me. My guy Paul Collodi used the farm bar to kick up the grip strength. Also, the farm bar has rotating sleeves, and a lot of people have used an axle bar. They're much cheaper, but if I use an axle bar, it's really tough on wrists and elbows, especially if I'm doing curling movements. So I like those rotating sleeves. So, Dustin, take heed on the warm-ups and the preparation. Maybe do some like front load your training with accessory work. My buddy Jesse Ackerman said he would do that quite often with the veterans in the NFL. So let's say he was going to have them bench press. Before benching, they did the thorough warm-up, the thorough prep. Then they did things like cable rows, pull-aparts, face pulls. They pumped up all the support muscles, and then they went into the main lift. So maybe move your main lift into the secondary lift. So that question is for Dustin. Next question. Steve R. Okay. He says, Coach, a couple of things. Number one, I heard you recently speak on Troy Polamalu using the Marinovich training methods, and I remember thinking at the time how different that was from Coach Starr, Bill Starr, and how Troy started to get injured much more. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to answer that. That's a two-part question. So a couple of things. I mean, if somebody's in the NFL, my goodness, like the chances of injury multiply tenfold. I remember Joe Ken telling me when he started coaching in the NFL and standing on the sidelines, he said the level of intensity is in comparison to the difference of recreation football to Division I. That's how intense things get at the NFL. He said guys are dying for the ball. I don't follow football enough. I've, of course, seen the video footage of Troy Polamalu training with the Marinovich methods, and kind of like this recent uptick of everybody making response videos to the NBA player who tore his Achilles. It's so hard to say, oh, if he only did more cleans, if he only did more of this, more of that, he would not have gotten injured. What I've learned through the decades of coaching, and it's such a heartbreaking truth, sometimes your best prepared athletes are the ones who are getting hurt. And then the lazy athlete who does everything wrong, trains like shit, has a shitty attitude, lazy, entitled, parties, all that stuff, doesn't get hurt. And then you start thinking, you don't even know what is the contributing factor. Luck, bad luck. Did the lazy person just not put mileage on their body? And so by the time you get to the NFL, you've got some serious mileage on your body from college football. Troy Polamalu, I can't remember what years he was playing, but if I recall correctly, the NFL of today, I think, has more downtime or more free time. So those players have to find coaches and seek out training. But I've had NFL strength coaches tell me, Zach, you would be shocked at how many of these guys show up to camp having done nothing in the offseason when they could actually come in well prepared and generate wealth that is generational wealth. That is money for their grandchildren. He's like, but they're just genetic freaks. They're such high talent. And then some of them are so lazy, they do nothing in the offseason. They literally show up 6 months of doing nothing. My philosophy behind training is blending everything together and leaning towards what the athlete needs to fill in the holes and the gaps in their performance. And if I was working at the NFL level, my questions would be to the position coaches. Hey, we're training Troy. What things, when you watch him play, does he need to work on? I would watch video footage of him. Then I would speak to the medical staff, the trainers, anybody who has dealt with this athlete from an injury standpoint. And then I would try to build that area. And I would also, of course, find out at that level, what does the player like? What builds his confidence? And that is the direction I'm going to go in for training. I'm just not the guy that's going to say, oh, dang, he should have been training the way Coach Starr did. Squat, bench, clean, military press, chins, dips. Listen, that stuff is awesome. But I'm sure once you get to the higher levels of sports performance, I feel like from what I've seen and what I've heard, a lot of those guys don't like doing that. They want to get away from that. And so you have to create a training program that fits better for their mind. Like I've heard Brian Cushing say he didn't know how to not train hard. And he said it may have cost him a little bit with regards to his health. And he said he could have changed anything when he got older, maybe get a little bit away from the strength work and get a little bit more into the quote-unquote speed and agility. But listen to what he said about the mindset. He's like, I just couldn't understand how to not train my ass off. He's like, I needed that mentally. That gave me the mental edge to be a physical beast on the football field. Next part of the question from Steve. Other than wrestling, what do you think is the most valuable martial art for football players, specifically defensive linemen? All the hand fighting stuff I love. So judo, Muay Thai, and then I haven't done it, but Randy the Manster, I believe, did Kali Eskrima, which is the Filipino stick fighting. I think anything that gets their hands and they're reactive to get to a point where they're not even thinking about it. And martial arts, anything with the hand fighting. I, of course, Muay Thai is not so much hand fighting. It's clinch, it's throw, it's using torso and hips. And, of course, you're throwing knees, elbows, and kicking. You're not doing that in football, but the ability to understand how to use your body to throw somebody. And then judo, I love it. So, Steve, these are great questions. Hope they help you. And now I'm going to look. I sent myself a screenshot of these questions. So let's blow this up a little bit. Daddy needs glasses. All right, let's go with my boy Jeremy Hartman. I spent some time on the phone with Jeremy today, had great conversations talking about training and business. And by the way, guys, if you want training and business, my certifications obviously is training, but they both come with business bonuses. And sspcoach.com, Strength and Sports Performance certification, has 2 business bonuses. We recorded Garage Gym Godfathers, which I did with Joe DeSena, which is talking about the warehouse gym aspect. And then I added a recording that I did at Varsity House Gym on why coaches should leverage their business into the online world and how to grow your online business. So that's at sspcoach.com. All right, Jeremy asks or says, talk development. How would you bring a middle school kid up through high school and college? Middle school would love to see 3 sports all the way through middle school. Strength training twice a week. By the time they get to 8th grade, we're strength training 3 days a week in season. And if this kid is training all year round, remember, middle school and recreation sports are a very shortened season. They're much shorter than high school. And I would focus on development. I wouldn't focus on winning titles. I would just focus on being competitive, learning skills, and playing the long game. I say this all the time to parents. How often should my son or daughter train? In middle school, you're going to train twice a week. We will bump it up to 3 days a week only when your kid is bothering you to make that happen. If they're very busy with the sports, then we go to twice a week, which I found is actually the common frequency of athletes because of how busy they are. Their parents are busy running around other siblings. The parents are busy running around this athlete to all the club and travel stuff. I would be a little bit, it's hard to say, hey, I encourage this club wrestling. I encourage this club baseball. Well, I may not be able to encourage it once I see the coaches, once I see how practice is run, once I see, is there any development going on from a skill standpoint, from a mindset standpoint of preparing that athlete how to compete. So I believe the Soviets kind of created their model of, the general physical preparation, the building athleticism, learning to train, training to train, and then the tip of the top of the pyramid is training to win. If in America, a lot of coaches go right to training to win. They don't teach them how to train. And so every training session has to be this so intense. And so I don't like that. I would say after each sports season, we're taking a full week off. Full week off from sports, full week off from strength training. Peace out. I don't want to see you. And our training, I've got all these videos inside undergroundstrengthcoach.com. You go and look at Underground Strength Gym warm-up. We have multiple videos. You'll see gymnastics, you'll see calisthenics, you'll see kettlebells, sprinting, jumping, running. You'll see a lot of training that has been heavily influenced from the Soviets of how they built the best athletes. And everybody could say, oh, they were on drugs. Everybody's on drugs, okay? The bottom line is this. If we took away the drugs, the Soviet model, which then became the Russian model when Soviet Union dismantled, they still had the best training model. Their sport coaches were also the strength coach, or back they called them a sport preparation or physical preparation coach. So twice a week until they're begging to go 3 days a week In high school, we're looking at 3 days a week. And if that athlete is still struggling on gaining muscle, we're going to go to 4 days a week. I look back to our most successful athletes. They spent more time at the underground strength gym. They were more invested in strength training. They did extra strength training. Today, what we're seeing is a bigger movement. Kids don't care if they lose anymore. It's not an embarrassing experience for them. They go on their phone 5-10 minutes later. They get a dopamine hit. They're not that interested in sports performance. They're more interested in bodybuilding. They're more inspired by guys like Sam Sulek and Chris Bumstead. What these kids of today don't understand is that those guys are on more steroids than a racehorse, and they're chasing something that will never work. I'm saying this as a kid who competed in bodybuilding against guys on steroids, and I remember losing the New Jersey State Bodybuilding Championship to a kid who went on to win the teen division, who was on, as they just said, he's on more shit than a racehorse. And I just couldn't compete against that. And so sports performance training is much harder than bodybuilding training. Bodybuilding training, without a doubt, is painful, and you're feeling the burn. But sports performance training requires a lot of learning. You're not really using machines, although machines are making a comeback. We see Sorinex making those machines that look like the old hammer strength machines, just with different grips. And so, through high school, now I'm going to intensify the training. I'm going to look for that athlete to go from 3 sports to 2 sports, so he has or she has a true off season. And then once they get to the middle of high school, finish sophomore year, it's not mandatory, but then I would say, okay, now if you want to specialize, you can. What's tricky is, first of all, Division I athletes are not very common. It's extremely rare. But that being said, a lot of these Division I programs are recruiting kids and getting them to commit to the school by the fall of their junior year. And so it's getting very tough to tell a kid, hey, do 2 sports freshman, sophomore year, then you could start to specialize junior year. A lot of programs, especially Division I, Division III and Division II are different. Division I is not so much looking at, hey, we could develop this kid. Hey, this kid might play a little bit on the football field. And first of all, true freshmen are barely ever getting recruited now unless you're an absolute freak. And by the way, I've seen the absolute genetic freaks. They could train any which way they want, and they will be the freaks. They will be, the top 10 recruit in the state or in the country because they're genetic freaks. So that being said, I'm still playing the long game, because what we're seeing is young college athletes getting surgeries from injuries and overuse. To me, it is, I don't want to say that it's not the word pathetic. It is, it's almost like criminal. Why do we have 19 and 20-year-olds getting serious surgeries? It goes to show you that the training leading up to it is shit. Okay? Non-nomenclature, any tips on eating when you have trouble eating big meals? You need to snack throughout the day with basic calorie-dense foods. Trail mix, raw milk if your stomach could handle it, sneaking in protein shakes, and non-nomenclature, you're pretty lean, but you might be okay eating peanut butter sandwiches, almond butter sandwiches. Usually I recommend that not so much for adults, but more for the athletes. So back to the development in high school. Now we're going to start blending those 2 sports together where each of them feeds the other one. And I really think high school coaches should do this. We always hear wrestlers saying, hey, football players should wrestle. How often do you hear wrestling coaches saying, you guys should play football? You don't hear it too much, but you know what? It would actually help them. It would get them tougher. It would get them more durable. They would learn to hit and learn to take hits. And we just don't see wrestling coaches doing it. We see wrestling coaches saying everybody should wrestle when they really should be also pushing them into other sports. High school sport coaches should learn to work together to build not just their program, but the overarching program of the school, the entire school. Once they get into college, then we start looking at their weak points. And by the way, a lot of people think this is going to be very fancy. When I got to Lehigh, I remember teaching kids how to do full range pull-ups and full range bodyweight squats. Same thing happened at Rutgers. They were doing the exercises, but they were doing them wrong. Just like in wrestling, people do double leg takedowns, but so does Jordan Burroughs, and he's an Olympic champion. Just like in racing cars, right? I don't know car racing, but I drive a car. It's the same thing, right? They're just driving it faster. Well, there's a ton more details involved. So it's not what you do, it's how you do it. The other thing I would say is this. Freshmen, I found, have more emotional stress. They've left their parents for the first time. They're living in a dorm. They're sharing a room with somebody else who may or may not be a good, let alone great roommate. So I try to kind of make it fun I make it fun for everybody, but I really pay attention to the emotional vibe I'm getting from the freshmen because I know they're struggling. And I try to talk with them a little bit more and encourage them and really focus on what they're doing good. So I think that's something important. Not all freshmen showing up to college have the resiliency and the toughness. And you are technically now the next role of a parent figure. I'm not trying to take over, but you're put in a role to be a caretaker. Okay. Chef Brett Smith, if you were to run a travel baseball program today, how would you do it? Number one, I would probably hire I'm not sure a younger or older baseball coach, but somebody who would be able to develop and teach skills, and not only teach skills, but teach them how to understand the game. So, hey, what happens when the ball goes to right field and the guy is running to second? What do you guys think? Get them to think. I would handle all the basic strength and conditioning, movement prep, calisthenics, bands, med ball throwing, and incorporating strength training. So if I'm training a local travel baseball team, they're going to be at the underground strength gym twice a week. In season, we're not going to do any overhead work. We'll do landmine work. If this is middle school kids, we're going to do a lot of unilateral work. We're going to do sub-max effort on barbell lifts, which means, always leaving 1 to 2 reps, even 3 reps in the tank, really focusing on clean technique. We're going to continue getting stronger and more powerful throughout the season, all the way into the playoffs. Whereas think about this. This is a great question. When you were in high school, I spoke Spanish, and I actually was really good in Spanish. But in the summertime, I did not speak Spanish. So we're looking at 10 weeks or 9 weeks of no Spanish. That is the equivalent of a season, essentially. What happens when you go back to school in September and have to speak Spanish again? On a scale of 1 to 10, you're like a 70. You're a C minus. You have lost 30%, maybe more, of your brain Spanish skills. That is the same thing that happens with the physical body. And now what we're looking at is in that 9-10 week period of no strength training, because a lot of kids stop strength training or they train the wrong way, which is also a great way to detrain. They get to the playoffs, they get to competition time, they are at 70%. They are at a C minus of everything they worked for, but now I'm too busy. Hey man, that's okay if you're too busy. Not everybody could be 10 out of 10. Some of you could be the 9 out of 10. Some of you could be the 8 out of 10. And some of you are going to play the bench. Some of you are going to have a losing record. The winners have the time, and they make the time. Thai Boxer wants to know, any advice on what type of strength training to do as a Muay Thai practitioner? Lifting for strength or hypertrophy, for example? Well, it depends. Hypertrophy, do I need you to bump up a weight class? Are you so undersized and skinny that I need to build muscle? Because if that's the case, building muscle is going to get you stronger. Every combat athlete should have, it's under my, I can't even take it. I got too many books here. Should have the Encyclopedia of Underground Strength. Get it on Amazon. That's number one. Number two, go to zachevnish.com/manual. That is the Underground Strength Manual. It's like 500 pages of training information and a ton of training programs, plans, especially for combat athletes. It is the manual that my interns get, and it's the manual that is you get when you sign up for my certifications. But I think I got it. Oh yeah, I see 2 of them on my desk, on my bookshelf. I send them to print me one. Costs $35 to print 500 plus pages, black and white spiral bound. You got to stop scrolling through the dang internet, getting confused with the 50 different workouts, and open up that underground strength manual. That's it. Next question. I love this question. This is from Coach Pritch. My guy's a athletic director and an assistant principal. He says, summer reflection opportunity for me. How do you reflect and then set up a planning period? Okay, Thai boxer, you got to buy the underground strength manual. If you're serious about it, that thing will pay you back for a lifetime, and then print it out on Print Me One. Summer reflection. As an administrator, as a leader, as a strength coach, how do I reflect? One thing I look at is, number one, I am in a leadership role over the athletes, but above me is the sport coaches. If the sport coaches do not support the strength and conditioning program, I say this all the time, I am a salmon swimming upstream. And that's what causes me and creates chasing of kids to show up. That's number one. So I reflect on that. I really have come to the conclusion that if I don't have the support of a sport coach, then my program will actually look like a shitty program. And the reality is, how have I helped build athletes who have become All-American and national champs in multiple sports and competed at an international level, yet at a high school level, I've got kids that can't squat 225. Does suddenly the program not work? Does suddenly the squats not work? The issue with the program is it is only as good as the person doing the program, not just the actual program, which is training 2 to 3 hours a week, which is nothing. What is happening all the other hours of the day? Nutrition, lifestyle, sleep, commitment to sports, skill, commitment to competing and learning how to mentally prepare and to actually mentally advance yourself to compete at a higher level. All of these things are pieces of the puzzle that are a crucial factor towards the success or lack thereof. So, Pritch, you're an administrator, you're a leader. I've always said if I was an athletic director, I would have a meeting with all the coaches and I would tell them, one team is not more important than the other. We are going to win together. And the way we're going to win together is everybody has to find a way to get their team to the strength coach twice a week, minimum, period, end of story. Don't tell me you can't do it. Don't tell me you can't make it happen. Find a way to make it happen. You have a resource in your school, use it. That's number one. Number two, and not necessarily in order, we're going to win together. We're going to support each other. We are in a small school, a big school. If you've got an athlete that will be a great fit for another program, then I want you to make that introduction to the coach and find a way to get that athlete into the program. We want to build more athletic athletes. Number three, we need to have leadership within the teams. So we're going to start a leadership academy club. This is something I want to do at my school where we get 1 or 2 minimum athletes from each team and we meet bi-weekly and go over leadership. And really, I would just be digging into like things that Jocko Willink and Echelon Front are constantly sharing. We need to build more leaders within the school and within each team. And I know I had one more thing I was going to say, but my mind is running in 100 different places. I would have a meeting in the beginning of the school year or like 2 weeks before every season starts. So before the fall season, before winter, and before spring. And I would let parents understand sports is not their right. This is volunteer. It is a privilege to be an athlete at so-and-so school. We will not tolerate rude parents. If you want to have an adult conversation with the coach, you could do that. But we will not tolerate rude parents who are heckling from the stands or who have a son or daughter who is disrespectful. Nobody gets extra playing time because of political or friendship reasons. Everything is earned. And that means sometimes your kid is playing less than another kid because ultimately, yes, we're trying to develop young men, young women, but we're also competing to win. That is the reality of high school sports. We are trying to win. And so let them know that even though the sport is during this season, there are things outside of the season to allow them to develop. And so I am looking at those things if I was a administrator. But one thing I know is if I went into administration, I would not be able to run the business. The business would just, as much as I'm not on the floor at the underground anymore, I still wouldn't be able to run my business. Okay, next question from Patrick. Are sets and reps the same, depending on if you're using kettlebells, dumbbells, or barbell? Kettlebells, for the most part, is a work capacity tool. Yes, you could do power, endurance, and some strength work with it. But for the most part, I like doing sets of 5 to 10. Sometimes I'll do kettlebell swings for higher reps. Back in the day, when I was training for the Tactical Strength Challenge, I did a lot of high rep kettlebell snatches, which were very tough on the shoulders, so not a fan of that. Dumbbells are more for muscle building, more assistance work, unless I'm doing a power movement. Snatch, power snatch, muscle snatch, clean and press, clean and jerk. Then I might be in the 3 to 5 rep range, but sometimes I'll do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But kettlebells usually get a 5 to 10 rep range. Barbells, no, they're not the same. The barbell allows me to lift the heaviest. I could do 1 to 5 reps. I could do 3 to 6 reps. Sometimes I will do a barbell lift for high reps. It's not that frequent, but sometimes we'll do it. If you're wondering about programming, I have so much in-depth programming in both of my certifications, and both of them have training seminar bonuses. So Underground Strength Coach Cert has a training seminar bonus with myself and Matt Wenning. We go heavy in-depth in program design, and there's modules with myself breaking down program design. SSPC certification has a bonus with myself and Joe DeFranco. Triple Threat Seminar, Matt Wenning was also there. And again, program design. But I think before you understand program design, you have to train yourself. You have to be somebody who gets under the bar. You have to be somebody who does the damn thing yourself. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. Follow-up question. Oh, this is also from Patrick with kettlebell stuff. Can you do 5-3-1 with kettlebells or a kettlebell track with barbell? Jim Wendler actually says this. He goes, if you're doing 5-3-1, do 5-3-1. Don't do 5-3-1 and then I'm adding a little bit of Zach's dad strong program. I'm doing 5-3-1, but I'm also adding triphasic. Well, then you're not really doing triphasic. You're not doing 5-3-1. Stick to a program. I think that is a major problem missing in today's training world, and especially with athletes. They cannot stick to any program. They will listen to the YouTube expert who has trained nobody before they listen to somebody like myself who started coaching in 1995. Adults will go from this program to that program to the next program because they just don't have the grit to be consistent. Consistency requires grit and toughness. All right, that is all the questions, guys. Make sure you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Go to zachstrength.com. Get your free training courses. Those training courses could be used for athletes and for adult men. Okay? And then from there, if you have questions, you can respond to those emails. And then all my resources, all my links, just go to zachevnish.com. It's all there. Thank you, guys.